Here we go.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call the July 9th meeting to order. And I need a recommendation, or what do I call it? Motion. Lost my words this morning to approve the minutes.
Holland, I'll make a motion.
And a second, please.
Second the motion, please.
Thanks, Rick. Okay, visitors.
Need to vote.
Oh, it's been a morning already. Dog issues, tearing nails, you know how that goes. It's been fun. Need to vote. All those in favor of the minutes? Or how about anybody opposed? We'll ask it that way. Is anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Thanks, Fran. Any visitors' comments? Nobody's here.
Okay.
And we are on to old business.
It's not my time in the meeting. The rooftop lighting update. I talked with Stride. Holland, I'll turn to you since you're my only contact, I think, that's in the room. Have you heard anything from Tim Haggett at Stride?
Not at all. If it was an email, sometimes if they call the store, my staff is pretty good at gatekeeping, but you know,
You haven't
I
got
have
the
not
message
heard a
either, though. Okay.
yeah, no message about anybody from electricity.
All right. Well, I'm gonna stop right there before I say something I shouldn't say.
More of the same.
More of the same. So, but I will rejoin
If
that
you were-
today with you.
If you reach out and want to CC me, I don't know if you're doing it on the phone, like I'm happy to be on so that if you need me to poke a little bit, I will.
Got it. Okay.
And Merchant and Business Association state regulation.
Registration. Yep. So, our city attorney is on this. I know I've had a couple phone calls with him and Fran. He reached out to get your contact info to talk with you to
Okay.
get some background information. I think the ultimate, I know John's not on. I don't believe he's we have an attendee here. So John is on. So let's just make him panelist before I continue on this line here. And just real quickly for Councilmember Bliss, this is helping to get the trade association in that world back up and going. So.
Okay.
John, you're back on. I was just giving a little update with Neil. Had a couple phone calls with me. I don't know if you had talked with Neil as well.
About fill me in. I'm sorry, I'm late, guys.
So we're on the trade, your Merchant and Business Association, getting it licensed back with the state and such like that.
I heard from him. He was asking me some questions, and I don't know that I've ever received anything back from him since.
But you probably haven't. He's been asking some follow-ups of other folks, myself, and then he's reaching out to Fran to get some other background he needs to be able to file it with the state. So, but it's in the city attorney's hands, so I would expect it won't be a problem, other than at some point, I'm looking to all of you, while the district is separate from the association, we may need to find the 3 to 5 people that are the board of the association, you know, at least the members going to be listed on this first filing with the state. So, but that's a step 2. I'm just giving you a heads up that will need to be done at some point to complete the filing.
Okay.
So.
Right. The printed business brochure.
I'm going to turn this one to Fran.
Okay, you have a handout. I can send it to you guys. I was working on this late last night, so. I put together 2 combinations. This is just 2 options. I figured this was the most logical. But it gives you the different components. There's also a breakdown. So if you went with the Webster Kirkwood Times insert, which is going to be the most expensive and the most number of copies that you print, that's combination number 1. Combination number 2 is just doing 5,000, which would just be mainly for the businesses. And when I did this, I just selected 50 businesses that would be in it just as a ballpark. It could be less, it could be more, depending upon what you all decide are the components. Like, is it everybody or is it just retail and restaurant, etc.? Excuse me.
Sure. I'm just listening.
Gesundheit. And then there's just a breakdown. Now, and the second page is just information about the inserts and gives you an idea. Because you don't have to do all of them, you can pick routes. I picked all of them just because it made sense to me. But depending upon what you guys want to do.
So the range is anywhere from 2170 to 6,000.
Yes, correct.
Okay,
I would say that's one extreme to the other.
yeah,
Folks online, I'm getting a copy real quick here up on for you, so I'll get it up on the screen so you can see it.
and when's the decision time need to be made? Is it today that we're making or?
Yeah, if you want to move forward,
Okay,
especially if you want to be able to, you know, potentially get stuff out there before the gazebo series starts, when there's a lot more people in the district.
Yeah.
I mean, I could even be giving them out at the gazebo series.
sure. Okay, great. He's got that pulled up.
Let's get it out of the way here. Oops, let's stop share. Go away. Since really no place out of the way, but there we go.
And then the other thing you talked about is, do you want to do this through, you talked about the cleanest way was through the new trade association or through the commission. Those are the other things that you talked about last time.
And I just want to give you that, just the background real quick again, the last piece Fran mentioned, if it's through the trade association, you can charge, you can limit who's in or out. For whatever reason, if they don't want to pay, they don't have to be in, or you can put, but if it's through the district, functionally, it should be everyone in the district gets included because they've all paid into the tax that pays for the district, so.
What are everybody's thoughts on the direction? Everybody should be included?
I think everybody should be included.
Okay. Anybody opposed to that? I kind of agree, but
Yep, I'm not opposed.
okay. So thoughts on the numbers here? So if we would then foot the bill.
So if the district can foot the bill, now, the district can create, and I'm not trying to create more work for Fran, but if you want it, I just want to put this out there. If everyone's included, they can have it's like the Yellow Pages, they get the basic listing, right? You can sell a bigger listing or such in the directory if you wanted to, so that's up to you. You could, and people can upgrade and pay into it. There would be a payment to the city then, since we're paying the bill on the final.
Sure.
But if you want to do it, everyone's in and they all get the same listing, it's that simple, we can pay the bill. And either one of them, I'm just gonna say, you're the
Yeah.
richest business district out of the three. You have a very big fund balance and this is a one-time project, you can make either of those costs work, so.
So again, the only difference in these two is the Webster Kirkwood Times, correct?
Yes.
And I mean, personally, I can't imagine doing without the Westminster Kirkwood Times. Thoughts, anybody? I will take that as they agree with me. So does anybody have a problem with making a motion with one of these or the other? So we can get going on it? I can't very well motion. So thoughts? Well, you
I'm
can
on-
just,
Both of them. If someone else wants to lead the way, I could go. I guess there's pros and cons to spending $4,000 more for Webster Kirkwood Times distribution. Is it really worth it? I guess is the question. And Angel, you were leading towards what?
well, I can't imagine doing it without the Webster Kirkwood.
Then it seems like
You know, that's just my thoughts, cause it's our backyard.
Well, you-
Yeah, and we do so much with them too. I mean, it kind of would be a bit weird not to at least
how many?
get those out there. And if we have the funds, we have the funds, or we can try and get it supplemented, but you know. Anybody else have any thoughts? So John, I'm gonna make that assumption. Are you making a motion? I can't motion.
You can actually,
I
yeah,
can?
you can.
Oh,
John,
Then I'll make a
John, I
motion.
didn't hear you, sorry, after, yeah, you said something.
John, say that again, sorry.
I was gonna make a motion to go with, is it combination one? Is that what we're calling it? The Webster Kirkwood Times option?
Correct.
And that's the full boat all across the city.
Alrighty.
Then I'll second.
Yeah.
Is anybody opposed? All right, we'll call a motion. Okay,
Take a vote. Right, well, you did that.
Yeah.
There you go.
all right, thanks, motion
Hey,
back.
we did some business today, all right, folks. Yes,
Can I ask a question?
absolutely.
Are you tied to doing it at the same, is it a specific edition of the Webster Kirkwood Times? Or this is just anytime you want to do an insert, you can do one. The one.
We can pick what issue we want it to be in. The only caveat to consider is if you print them all now, but you don't do the insert for 2 months, then you have to pay someone a storage fee unless you can negotiate the printer to hang on to it. But if you have the Times store it, they will charge you. It's not a lot, but that's an additional charge. If you choose to print a small number in a first batch and a larger number in a second, that will affect the pricing of how much you print. Because the quantity affects how much the printing price is.
And we thought
So say I've worked with the Times and they have specifically told me, don't advertise in July and August, just because of the.
Well, I'll give you an example of the old Webster Trade Association. They are holding theirs until school is back in session. The first issue after school is
Yeah.
back in session is when they'll do their insert, even though businesses will
Right.
probably have it before that.
So would we just choose a different week than they chose? And I was gonna suggest that also. Right now, there's really not a lot of people in town. People aren't reading their Webster Kirkwood Times. So is that mid-August through mid-September, somewhere in there?
That makes sense, because we still have to create it.
Yeah. Yes.
yes. Yeah, I would guess that we're probably 2 months out from being ready to drop in a paper fully and such. So we're probably in that September range.
Great.
We'll try not to be in the same one as the old Webster
Yes, I would do it
edition.
at the
We'll
same
we'll
time.
find a different time, so.
Thanks, Fran, for doing all that legwork. Okay. Anybody else?
Done.
Any new business? Holiday festival.
Holiday Festival, it's time to start planning for Christmas.
Last year you said you didn't have enough time to talk about it, so we'll just do the minimum and next year we'll.
Christmas in July?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
We
So-
talked about a lot of different things last year.
So let me start with infrastructure, folks. We added the lit decorations to the end down by Holland on the new poles. The poles across the Murdoch Bridge in that area by the hospital also have power. We did not do those, and it was sort of a first run, does this look good? Do we like the look? And in general, I think people really enjoyed, Old Orchard popped last year during the holidays, I thought, really had a sort of a presence. So I put that on the table. Do you want to? That's within your district. Do you want to, look at adding to those poles as well as a gateway part to the city? And then again, I think, the Christmas tree or the holiday tree, is still not going to be prominent enough at gazebo that will continue to do the lighting across the ground and the other trees. But I want to get a sense from folks, did that work? Is there any problems with that issue, just in terms of that infrastructure for the holiday season?
Can we kind of just summarize what we did generally last year?
Last year, we had the lighting ceremony on the day of. We had Santa in the gazebo. And Santa gave away a coupon to the children for a free kid-sized hot chocolate when they saw him. I think we gave away 75 of those, or we redeemed 75 of those. And we encouraged everybody to do something on shopping day. We're trying to get, some people did a lot, some people did nothing. But we promoted it quite a bit. We established the name, we established a graphic which we can reuse. We talked about a Ferris wheel.
Great.
And we talked about adding lights to the park every year to make it, but am I forgetting anything? I think that's about it.
We had mentioned the reindeer possibility.
Oh, yeah, we had talked about I guess you'd call it kind of like a reindeer petting zoo.
Yeah, right. It was really activating the park as a space, for the event, in fact. Santa came, what was it, 1 to 3 or something like that? I can't remember.
Yeah, they were there like from noon till 3.
Yeah, then there a little break and then the kids, did I'm quite sure that group would love to come sing again. Seems to be a thing.
Yes, from the Gateway Center for Performing Arts.
Yep.
They had a crowd come just to see them.
Right. So the point is the event has got some meat now. I mean, I
Yeah.
think the lighting event is certainly got, and I think Santa seemed to be a pleasure. I mean, people came,
They did a really good job.
right.
It was Santa and Ms. Claus. Both.
Well, does anybody have any suggestions if they want to make changes or additions? Because I think if we plan to go forward with what we did last year, what would we change?
I think the real key is it activated in a way that it is more than just a park? Is there, do the businesses do something, right? And how do we encourage the businesses to take part? More like the holiday stroll, if I can use that term, here in Old Webster. And then what, is there anything more in the park that needs to happen? I mean, Santa, I think if he was available and we pre-booked him just to,
Yes,
was
for
gonna
the
be my
same
next
hours, though?
question.
yeah.
So we still have that
And it's
break.
interesting because he was already booked for later. I couldn't go later because he already had,
Yeah,
but he could come earlier, so they can be there longer.
but there's also then there's that break. There's just this period where the park, between dusk
them.
and the Santa and the dusk
Right.
that we just had nothing going on. So is there something we want to do? I don't know what that something is, so I just
Yeah.
really a question of, do we have an event or is it just two pieces? So Pam, we're welcome to your thoughts as well, so.
yeah, anything to tie the between? I guess didn't we check on the Ferris wheel and all that kind of stuff was extremely expensive, was it not?
As I
We checked-
recall, it was gonna be $15,000.
Yeah. I don't know, we need to go that extravagant, but if people feel we do. That's just a personal thought. Did everybody hear Fran said that, I believe it was like 15,000 to have the Ferris wheel? So is there something that we could maybe check in between to have potentially the reindeer? Or,
I think reindeer,
is there
with
like,
Big Bend, it's tough because you can talk about carriage rides, but then you're really tough with traffic right there. It's different than Old Webster in that regard, but I mean, we could look at probably some other novelty things that.
was
could
there
be
like a
done.
train or something? Wasn't one year, rather than going full like Ferris wheel, but a Christmas train or, something that would.
There was a guy that did they were made out of barrels.
A little carts they pulled behind like a
Yeah,
looked like a train.
Like big
yeah.
oil
Yeah.
drum things that were painted, and that was at the tree lighting one year. And he just did it in South Old Orchard that we closed
Yeah,
during the event.
it's something that would give, in between time a little bit.
And are we trying to fill the in-between time because Santa came so much earlier?
Santa's only available till like
Till like
3.
3.
Yeah, and
Th-
so
this-
then you,
Okay, this particular one, I mean, if we got in early enough, are we still trying to fill?
we booked him last year and he was already booked for the afternoon. So now that said, we could switch Santas out.
That's
If
true.
if someone has another Santa, and we could.
Oh yeah, I didn't realize we'd already booked the same guy.
Yeah, I just tell you, last year he and Mrs. Claus were amazing, especially with kids and they,
Great.
so. I was like,
Colin, not to put work on you, but what about like one of the Christmas stories or something in between?
I mean, people are welcome to borrow. I can lend some books. I
Yeah.
mean, we're swamped. I mean,
Yeah.
at that time, I mean, we are just nuts.
Right.
And mostly this year we're kicking off our 10-year anniversary, but
Oh,
I could be a fan of some, petting zoo or a little train for kids or something like that. Like, sure. I mean, happy to look into that. If you guys think that's a good direction, I can concur. Yeah, I don't have any steam to
No.
put any part of it together, but
It
happy to
would
make
be
some
inter-
book suggestions and lend some.
Right, yeah, I think that might be interesting if we did have like a Christmas story hour or something like that, I mean, in that period where kids can come sit and,
night
Yeah.
before Christmas.
Christmas, Santa or Mrs. Claus or an elf, reads something like that.
Or is there a way to put a screen up and show a Christmas movie in between? Something that's.
So yes, there
you know,
is, I mean, they make rentable, yeah, we can do that, yeah, so we can.
I mean,
do a
something
movie.
like putting Elf up even might be kind of funny to,
Mm-hmm.
and then it gives them. Hit the button and, maybe it's something such as that fills a good chunk of time before it's.
If you do a Christmas movie, that's very easy. There did seem to be by that period, 3 o'clock, like it was starting to you all know your retail patterns, but it felt like it was starting to slow down in
Mhm.
terms of shopping, you know, I mean, that it was, you could see that sense. And then, of course, the evening event or the dusk event really hits into a eating crowd, right? You know, they're,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
rolling from there to to go dine. So
Well,
the
a couple
movie
hour
may be-
movie, then it's gonna hit, that can transition.
Exactly. You could easily do that. I should say easily. We could do that. I don't know. Easily, should watch my film. Home there.
I mean, I don't know if
Another-
you have connections of who to look into for that, or I can research too. I mean, either way.
I think there is really a screen. That's the thing in the question. Thinking we used to do them in Flagstaff all the time. They have, they're, you know, certainly you get a full screen mounted. The inflatable might be the
Yeah,
easiest, the inflatable screens that they can put up and, you know, run one of those. I can see that happening, so. Might be the easiest option. They're not that expensive to rent.
Okay.
Comparably to many other things, so.
I'll see what I can find out. I don't, and if anybody has any suggestions or know of anybody or have connections in that, I do not, but I'm happy to research it.
Yeah, I just know sometimes there's some licensing, there's just a licensing fee if you're showing a movie publicly, but I mean, I'm sure that's pretty
So-
easy to also figure out. Or do you all have one from the city?
City has all that because at the rec center they get done, so between music and film, so we've got a good chunk of those licenses already. So we'll figure out what we have.
All right.
So a question for everybody to think about is what would it take to get the businesses more engaged? That's where we were lacking. That was new. So people weren't used to it. Maybe they didn't know, but what grabs, why would they, you know, like Colin said, that they're super busy, so what are they gonna benefit or how could they be engaged? That's a question that we really don't have a good handle on.
Is there, you know, when we always head to conventions and things, there's always kind of a swag bag of stuff. And some people put the coupons and the things and those kind of things to stop by. I mean, if they can't participate, maybe we, you know, encourage them to participate, obviously, but maybe it's something that they would, I don't know, offer by throwing something in to hand out to everybody, not just, that, you know, the kids get their hot chocolate coupons, but maybe stop by the store for A, B, and C.
Or comeback coupons too.
Yeah, come back coupons, yeah, I
Another
don't,
day.
Can be done, yeah. Either way, I think there's gonna need to be outreach on the front end, right? I mean, obviously, if we're all committed to the date, I think from the city's perspective, we know we have to have a lighting, you know, and such, but. You know, that encouraged the restaurant, the businesses to participate. We did talk about maybe Toys for Tots or a food shelf donation, you know, at places that you go, any business and drop off. This would be the time to start planning that and, you know, sort of angle us in that way if we're gonna do that. Because that's one way to activate, even if it's a small way, right? Is that, you know, is where everyone's a location to drop off.
Right, and if you want a Marine to be at a Toys for Tot, you gotta get them in advance too.
Right.
Cause they will actually come. But that has to be organized way in advance.
Doesn't have to be Toys for Tots. We're just giving you an example.
Yeah.
We can go any way you want to go. But
And there was one business that did Toys for Tots last year, and they're not there now, and that was Weber's. So even just one business doing it, that could be their way to engage.
Right.
You could have another business do the food coordination donation.
right,
It just all needs to start now. This is what we want to do.
yes,
I would be interested in doing Toys for Tots.
I'm sorry.
that was Steve.
This is Steve. I'd be interested in doing Toys for Tots if nobody else is doing it, then or whatever.
Something else to think about is having a subcommittee to work on this. The subcommittee doesn't have to be commission members. So like John was saying, the owner of the new yoga place is anxious to get involved. She could be on the subcommittee, that sort of thing.
So much.
Yes.
right. Yeah, there's a lot, though. But Christmas in July is when we start planning Christmas, all the holiday stuff. So
So I think a fair question is, what's our drop dead deadline date that we want to be done and planned? Cause then we should back it, then we should back our planning up.
I think
that's
your September meeting, you need to know what your program of activities are. Fran, would you agree?
At least.
Okay. Morning.
Morning.
Thoughts from anybody? Silence.
What's the date?
It's the first Saturday in December.
Sure.
I was just asking, Holland, you're obviously busy, I know that. John, I'm thinking of your businesses, if there was a coordinated, I'll use Toys for Tots. If everyone got a Toys for Tots box across the whole area, can your business support that infrastructure? I mean, a box for Toys for Tots, is that too much in the middle of the season and floor space and all that kind of stuff?
I have to think about it because we're doing a real huge push this year for our nonprofit because it's celebrating as our 5th year. And that's getting authors and free books into kids' hands in our own schools. So we're kind of doing stuff about that every month. And so I just possibly, and then there's another organization we work with. So it just might be a little tricky because we're asking for stuff a lot this year.
Totally understand.
Maybe it could be
I mean,
her contribution to the day.
and we don't have to have it all be in the same place, right? It's really, you could say, do whatever you want, how to help those who need or such, so.
Well, we have a bin already at the animal hospital for the Bi-State pet food pantry, so whatever, we can throw that in
Yep.
as for those that aren't doing the human side. Then we can incorporate the animal side from that matter.
You sell pet insurance too?
Don't sell pet insurance. I have a whole list that you can look at, but. So we can, kind of put that as a help at Christmas, because they're always looking for donations.
Yeah.
We already have the bin, so whether we can bring it down to here or whether,
Sure.
anybody through that, so whatever. We discuss as options, and if we're gonna have any donations, I'm
Mhm.
happy to help on that side and. Were there any pets last year? I could not attend. Were there any pets? There weren't that many. I know we sent somebody down with some stuff who said that there wasn't too many, but we can make sure and have treats available for those that are.
I don't
There.
know that we advertise it as a bring a pet along the way, but we certainly could, right? I mean, that could be easily added
Yeah.
and such. I
And
think maybe it was a dog or two, if I remember correctly.
It was.
Yeah.
I guess, would we ask Santa and Mrs. Claus if they mind them? Because
That's
if
a good idea.
they don't mind them, then we can kind of
We can involve that, brother.
bring them, and then we can all get paraphernalia for the animals. That's an easy piece. So.
Yeah, I think I think they're all great ideas. I think we're at that point where who amongst the group, if outside the commission, there's a couple members that want to do it, who inside the group here is sort of the lead, right?
Right.
We obviously, Fran and I have done the lighting ceremony now 3 years in a row, so we'll be able to pull that piece off. Without a problem, we can look into the film stuff, but it's really,
I mean, I'm happy to co-do whatever with someone. There's
did you hear the co part of there, folks? The
the code, yes, I'm happy to help kind of do some stuff if somebody else will join me.
It sounds like the
I might be
yoga
able to code
person.
something.
Yeah, I was just saying,
we'll
it
get the
sounds
yoga
like
person.
the yoga
Yeah.
person, and I can check with the rest of my staff. I do have a couple of younger people that are wanting to get involved in different ways. So if I can throw somebody else on to like the subcommittee, that I'll let you know.
Okay,
That's a good idea.
Was that Steve who was wanting to co something?
Yep.
Maybe. I'll check on my staff too, though. That's a good idea.
Do we have an opening on the commission right now? Old
We do
Orchard
not.
Business? We do not? Okay.
Katie Cahoon is your new member. She couldn't be here today though. So.
there's the other code. No, I'm teasing.
Yeah.
So. All right, well,
That's fine. So let's, obviously we have one of the codes. We need to find the other code.
Yeah.
But we can do this by email. And Holland and Steve, if you've got folks, email them into Fran and I. And with the chair, we'll put together a subcommittee and we'll figure out the codes on it.
that'll work.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then we can have meetings. It can be by Zoom. Doesn't have to be in person, but certainly in person helps. But they're not as formal as this one, you know,
Yeah.
you'd be much more practical and get some reports back to us, so.
Okey doke, we'll move forward on that. Anything else on that? Alrighty,
Mark it on your calendars.
just did. Thanks for reminding us the date.
You're welcome.
BDC update.
Oh, that's right, Stephanie's not on the commission, so, BDC had a big meeting on whatever day it was last month. The conversation is about the SID, the biggest conversation, Gilmore Bell was presenting our attorneys, Community Improvement District, concept that they had looked at, and we talked also about the other potential availabilities to the city and such. Not surprisingly, the BDC's goal, I should say, some folks on the BDC's goal of a citywide SID is going to be very tough to do. First of all, once you involve residential properties in a SID, even though it may be a sales tax issue, you end up with a whole different slate of who gets to vote on the SID. And then if we took just commercial areas, and let's just, by way of example, connected Old Orchard down Big Bend to Crossroads, that's called flagpole, you know, that run that very skinny piece of land, you know, down the middle of the road to get in the district. That could also be potentially litigable. Now, it's a possibility, but it's going to be tough to get conjoined areas that are separate geographically, the way the law is written. So they also then talked about the economic development sales tax, which is a citywide sales tax that would potentially go towards funding the services, the things that they have been thinking about and others may. It's very early on in the process. I don't want anyone to think that this is the way we're going. Meaning the city, it's, you know, obviously it would be a recommendation from BDC, but the economic development sales tax does have some strictures around it as well. You can only use up to 20% for things like marketing and events and such. You really have to have an infrastructure purpose for this tax. It was designed for those infrastructure purposes. So I think that, you know, that's going to be a fundamental, again, we're back to scope and size, the question of this conversation. What is the purpose of the taxing authority and the funds that are created, and then where is it applied to and such? So in a SID, you know, you can't put the sales tax, SID sales tax in Crossroads to get schnook sales tax money, I'll use that term, but then pay for something in an Old Orchards area if they're not connected in the district. So they were really going back and forth on those conversations. I think they're leaning towards a more citywide sales tax. I get the sense, Fran, you can certainly give me, I don't think they made no decision, so we're interpreting what people are saying to you is why I'm sort of hedging everything I say.
They have another subcommittee meeting scheduled this month too. And that one is a wider, it's not just members of the commission. There are other business owners on that from all over the city. And that'll talk about what they learned from the attorney and then try to figure out what the scope is and what to share with folks. Because they do want to share the information at the business coffee, which is in September. The research, basically the information, this is what we found out. Because then it's still up to everybody else to give their input.
And obviously it's a longer process in the fact that internally, are we going to go one route or another is really a conversation. I think the plan is to have BDC make some recommendation if they wish. Then that the council then has to act on a recommendation, right? Rather than here's some options and then leave it to the council to decide. No offense to the council, but it's really, you know, the point of this is what is the business community desiring as well? I mean, what if we're going to be putting a new tax potentially in place, what is the purpose of it and is there support for it? You know, rather than just taking a step into a pond, not knowing what's there. So. And the other issues, we have the Explore Webster Groves QR code collateral that'll come out this next month. Was there anything else of major note? No, it was really
Because it was a 2-hour meeting.
Yeah. So, and just a heads up, it's not specifically BDC, but Crossroads itself is looking at a CID model as well. Should they convert their current district, the district like you have, into a CID model? You know, the fundamental nature of these districts is property tax and the business license surcharge. It's your only revenues you're allowed by taxation. But going to a SID model, which is what the Grove and downtown St. Louis and South Grand, the Grand area did, is you convert to a sales tax model by going to a CID. And so that potential then is, is certainly that changes the nature of Crossville. I mean, they have a large sales tax potential versus a very small property tax potential, so.
I hate to interrupt. I have to join you all from my car from this point. I don't want to mess with
You're fine, Holland.
quorum or anything, but I'm going to jump off and then try to reconnect.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question.
Yes,
Is for the entire city then holistically, is the SID term off the table?
for us, yes, well, technically it can be done, okay? But then what happens is you end up, the entire city, including the residents, are the voters of a SID. When you create a SID right now, you
Okay,
generally go
right.
out only in
Yeah.
commercial spaces.
Right.
And then the property owners, i.e. the business owners generally are the voters, not the residences of that space, so. So it is off the table in terms of it's very hard to get that
Yes.
done
Yeah.
in that way. Whereas the economic development sales tax, Brentwood has one, does exist as a potential to do. It's another half cent sales tax. So
That's too bad.
it is, now that said, and I'll go back, I just want to be very clear. I think attorneys generally, no one wants to go to litigation, right? But the concept of flag pulling, that connecting
Yeah.
spaces, it's litigable, right? And I don't think a lot of people have done it, but not a lot of people have tested it either, right? Most places have very
One
distinct
central.
business, they have one central business district or distinct areas, like you go in St. Louis, you've got the Grove, you've got South Grand, you've got downtown. We're a community that never had that, and we amalgamated things, right? And so you don't have to destroy Old Webster's identity or Old Orchards or Crossroads and all these different identities. But if you want to get a sense of common usage across the way and more unity there, flag pulling is a potential that it can be done, but that's really a risk question that the city needs to answer. And BDC in making its recommendation doesn't want to go down that road, so.
Any questions or anything for that? Okey-dokey, moving on to the city update.
I'll turn to Councilmember Bliss.
Let's see, last council meeting, we all agreed to move two of the recommendations from the Charter Review Advisory Board to an election to the ballot. I don't think we came to a consensus on which election, but it was between August and April and November.
You delayed them in such a way that they could not be on until next April,
Okay,
so.
so those two amendments are, one is community engagement, embedding that in the charter, so basically saying that we have to communicate with our residents. City does, and then the second one was compensation for council members. So that happened. Next meeting, we're taking off, so that's a break, so our next meeting won't be until the first Tuesday in August. And then today is a big day in the city of Webster Groves because the National League of Cities Roadshow, which is visiting 100 cities around the country, is going to be arriving here in the afternoon. And I will let Eric talk about that a little bit more, but that's a big deal. The National League of Cities is an organization in Washington, DC, which advocates and helps municipalities create policy, education, just come together as an organization, so.
So it's their 100th anniversary. They started in 1924 at the University of Kansas. Is where the first meeting was held, and it was essentially, coming through the roaring 20s, how do we deal with all the changes in the federal government and such, and advocate for those things. But the National League of Cities has been a critical help to us. They've given us two $15,000 grants to do some work with businesses. In fact, a member of yours, Katie Cahoon, on this commission, got one of those micro grants that we then gave out to help her business. But they also do an incredible amount of work on advocacy. A lot of our conversations with the railroads, they've helped to open up the door, which is, getting to the railroads is like, trying to talk to God personally. It's tough. But not to be flippant, but also in grant work as well. Really, our Safe Street grant, that $2.6 million grant that we are getting to talk about how do we improve pedestrian safety, slow down traffic, such. That wouldn't have happened without some very, very helpful free grant assistance from the National League of Cities. So We're happy to be a member of them. They are coming, they're doing, because of 100 years, they're doing 100 cities across America on a roadshow. They're sort of in this region today, and they'll be here at 2 o'clock, 2:30, 2:30.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock, thank you. It's been a day already. 2 o'clock, we anticipate if we're gonna be outside, which I don't know that we are, given the weather, we're gonna be at the Aquatic Center and then at Ivory Crockett Park. So we'll be talking about the Benny Gordon story and the pool and of course, how this community really changed and stood up on racial equity in the early 1950s, and then Ivory Crockett's story, and then about that park and the investments we're making in Destination WG. We may be here at City Hall due to rain, just and such, but either way, we look forward to having them here. You're all welcome. The community's welcome as well. We're gonna have sort of a mini museum. So we have got blown ups of the news excerpts of those days. So people can sort of see that story, hear from the Gordon family. They will speak. And also Ivory Crockett himself will be here to talk about his story and sort of his life in North Webster and such. So.
And they are in a big branded bus.
Yes, they're a big
So
RV. So,
Yeah.
yeah. You'll see it parked in front of City Hall if we're here, or if we're at the Aquatic Center at Ivory Crockett. So.
All right, any questions?
And Officer Flannery and Sergeant Flannery, excuse me, anything on parking or any issues? Parking's good? All right. Parking's good.
All right, does anybody have anything else before? No, so our next meeting is August 13th. And I have a motion for adjournment then.
I'll make that a motion.
Thanks, John. Second,
Second that, please.
thanks, Rick. And if there's anybody opposed to heading out? Well, thank you, everybody. Hope to see you maybe someday in person again. All right.
I will be
thanks.
back.
Great.
Awesome.
Join the
Have a great
fun.
day, everybody.